The arena was silent. Too silent for a WWE crowd. You could almost hear the heartbeat of every fan in attendance pounding through the air. And then, there he was. Triple H stepped out from the curtain. No smirk, no swagger, just a hollow, heavy look in his eyes that immediately told us something was terribly wrong. Every fan watching at home, every single person in that building, felt it. We didn't know what was coming, but deep down, we knew it wasn't going to be good. Triple H didn't speak for a full 20 seconds. He just looked down at the microphone in his hand, as if saying the words would make them real. And then, his voice cracked. Rey Mysterio suffered a heart attack. The crowd gasped. You could hear people in the front row physically cry out. It wasn't just the words, it was the way he said it. The way his face twisted with pain. This wasn't the game, cutting a promo. This was Paul Levesque, a man broken, a man hurting, because his brother in the business was fighting for his life. Triple H took a breath, clearly trying to compose himself, but his hand was shaking. This isn't part of the show, he continued. This isn't a storyline. This isn't hype for a match. Rey is in the hospital right now, and it's bad. At that moment, the camera panned to the crowd, mothers holding their kids closer, grown men with tears in their eyes, fans covering their mouths in shock. And yet, the part that hit the hardest was when Triple H's eyes glistened as he said, "I was there when they took him in. I saw the fear in his family's eyes, and I will never forget it. He's more than just a WWE superstar. He's a husband, a father, my friend." You could feel the collective heartbreak in that building. The man who inspired generations, the ultimate underdog, the superhero in a mask, Rey Mysterio was now fighting the toughest battle of his life, and there was no guarantee he'd make it back to us. And then Triple H's tone changed. The sadness was still there, but something darker crept in. "Do you know what makes me sick?" he said, his voice sharpening like a blade. Rey wasn't supposed to be in that situation. He wasn't supposed to be in the ring that night. He told me he wasn't feeling well. He told the officials. And yet, somebody pushed him out there anyway. The crowd erupted in shock and anger. Who? Why? What did he mean? Triple H shook his head. "I'm not gonna point fingers, yet. But I will find out who decided Rey Mysterio's health wasn't as important as the show. And when I do." He paused, his jaw tightening. "There will be consequences." The arena was split between tears and rage. People were screaming Rey's name, others shouting at the thought that someone inside WWE might have ignored a warning sign just to get a match on the card. And then, he said something that made the internet explode. "I don't care if it's an executive, a producer, or a top superstar. When I find out who put Rey in that ring that night, I swear to you, they're done here." And that's not a threat. That's a promise. You could feel the heat from the crowd. The tension was so thick you could cut it with a knife. But before Triple H could say more, the Tron lit up, and footage appeared. Security cam footage. Backstage. The night Rey had his heart attack. And in that grainy black and white video, we saw Rey sitting in a chair, breathing heavy, clearly unwell, as a shadowy figure approached him, slapped him on the shoulder, and said something we couldn't hear. Rey shook his head. The figure gestured toward the curtain. Rey shook his head again. And then, the figure pointed aggressively toward the entrance and walked off. The crowd lost it. Triple H turned and stared at the footage, his lips curling in fury. Find them. Now. The locker room, usually a place filled with loud chatter, laughter, and the occasional heated argument, had fallen into an eerie silence. The only sound was the soft hum of the ventilation system and the occasional cough or shuffle of footsteps. Word had spread like wildfire, and every superstar, from rookies just starting their WWE journey to veterans who'd been on the road for decades, stood together, trying to process the reality that one of their most beloved brothers in the business was fighting for his life. Dominic Mysterio was not among them. The cameras caught him pacing alone in a secluded hallway, away from the crowd, his hands buried deep in his hoodie pocket. His face was pale, eyes red, not from sadness, but from the storm of emotions raging inside him. His relationship with his father had been strained for years, and while the storyline feuds were for entertainment, there was a lingering truth: they hadn't spoken properly in months. The guilt was eating him alive. "Is this how it ends?" he muttered under his breath, his voice trembling. Back in the main area, Triple H emerged from a private room, where he had just gotten off a tense phone call with Rey's doctors. His usual confident stride was slower, his eyes filled with something you rarely saw in the game: fear. The room fell dead silent as he looked at the gathered talent, clearly searching for the right words. "Rey," Triple H began, his voice cracking ever so slightly. "Rey is still with us, but it's bad. He's in critical condition. The doctors say it was a massive heart attack. They're doing everything they can, but they've told me to prepare for the possibility that he might not make it through the night." Gasps filled the room. Some superstars buried their faces in their hands, others just stood frozen. Triple H paused, visibly shaken before continuing. Rey has given his life to this business, to entertaining the WWE Universe, to inspiring the next generation. He's one of the toughest, most resilient men I've ever known. But this is a fight that even Rey can't win alone. That was the moment social media exploded. WWE's official Twitter account posted. Breaking. Rey Mysterio has suffered a massive heart attack. He is currently in critical condition. Our thoughts are with Rey, his family, and fans worldwide. Within minutes, #Pray for Rey was trending in 27 countries. Fans from all walks of life, whether they had been watching Rey since his WCW debut or just discovered him through highlights, began posting clips of his greatest moments. The image of Rey standing victorious at WrestleMania 22 after winning the World Heavyweight Championship was shared thousands of times, with captions like, "You fought through everything before, Rey. You can fight through this too." Meanwhile, Naomi, who had been close to Rey and his family through years of shared locker room tours, posted a tearful video on Instagram. Her voice trembled as she said, he's not just a legend in the ring. He's a father, a friend, someone who always took time to help people, even when he didn't have to. Please, keep him in your prayers." But while the outpouring of love was massive, not everyone in the WWE Universe reacted with unity. On SmackDown, an already brewing storyline involving Santos Escobar and the LWO took a sharp, uncomfortable turn. Santos, breaking kayfabe in the most controversial way, addressed the camera directly and said, "I told Rey that his time was up. I told him to walk away while he could. Maybe now, people will understand that I was right." The backlash was instant. Fans booed loudly in the arena, some even chanting, "Too far." And, "Shut up." Social media went into meltdown, with many calling for WWE to suspend Santos immediately. But the controversial remark had already served its purpose. It pushed emotions into overdrive. By the next morning, reports surfaced that Rey had been placed on a ventilator. The doctors were monitoring him hour by hour. Triple H gave a quiet update to a backstage reporter, his words heavy. "We're in uncharted territory now. Rey's condition is extremely fragile. All we can do is wait." One source says you could feel the tension in the air. Some wrestlers were pacing back and forth, others couldn't even eat. But here's the thing that's absolutely infuriating to fans. This isn't just about Rey's health, it's about everything he's been carrying on his shoulders for years, and how WWE might have failed him in ways no one is openly admitting yet. When Triple H finally addressed the roster privately, he didn't sugarcoat it. His voice cracked as he said, "We almost lost him. Rey's fighting, but I'll be honest, this changes everything." Those in the room said you could hear sniffles from the corner. Dominic wasn't there, but his mother was. And when Triple H made eye contact with her, he stopped speaking for a few seconds, visibly holding back tears. But here's where this story takes a turn that you, as a fan, are going to have a hard time forgiving. Because while Rey is literally fighting for his life, there are still corporate voices backstage quietly debating whether his absence will hurt TV ratings, and which younger stars should benefit from the vacancy in the lineup. That cold, business-first attitude is exactly what's making WWE fans furious right now, and rightfully so. Think about it. This is Rey Mysterio, a man who has bled, broken bones, risked his entire body for decades, constantly showing up for the fans even when his personal life was falling apart. And now, in his darkest moment, there are people in suits looking at this like some kind of scheduling inconvenience. I'm telling you right now, if you're not feeling some anger at that, you're not really hearing me. Meanwhile, Triple H made a promise, right there in that meeting, that he was going to personally be by Rey's side, whether it's in the hospital or during recovery. And here's the part that's going to break you. He admitted something very few people knew. Rey had been quietly dealing with chest discomfort for weeks. But he didn't want to tell anyone because he didn't want to derail storylines or let down the fans. That selflessness. That's what nearly killed him. And now the wrestling world is left asking, how did no one in WWE Medical pick this up? How many times did he walk to gorilla position holding his chest, and no one said, "Stop, you're not going out there"? Because let's be honest, if this were a top-level corporate executive showing those signs, they'd have been rushed to a hospital at the first complaint. But in wrestling, you tough it out. You keep going. Until your body just quits. The fans, they were quiet. For once, the WWE Universe, famous for being the loudest, most passionate crowd in the world, was eerily still. Not because they didn't care, but because they were processing the reality that Rey Mysterio's career, and maybe even his life, had just been put in jeopardy. And then, Triple H made it worse. He revealed that Rey's doctors had told him that this was not the first warning sign. Rey had been experiencing chest pains for weeks. But he pushed through. He kept wrestling. He didn't want to let the fans down, or let WWE down. Triple H's voice cracked as he explained that Rey had collapsed backstage after a recent SmackDown taping, but Rey had begged the doctors not to make it public. Rey's a fighter. But this isn't about fighting anymore. This is about survival. And that's when Rey's son, Dominic Mysterio, stepped into the frame, his eyes red, his face pale. For months, Dominic had been booed mercilessly, hated for betraying his father in storylines, but at that moment, the fans saw something else. A broken son. A son who might lose his dad. Dominic didn't talk like his on-screen character. There was no arrogance, no taunting. Instead, his voice was shaking. I don't care about the storylines. I don't care about the matches. I need my dad to be okay. I need him to come home. You could feel the atmosphere shift in the arena. Fans who once jeered him were now tearing up. Triple H put his arm around Dominic, almost like he was shielding him from the weight of the news. He promised that WWE would do everything possible, the best doctors, the best treatment, and all the time Rey needed to recover. But, and this is the part that hit everyone hardest, Triple H hinted that there's a chance Rey may never step into the ring again. The crowd gasped. Rey Mysterio, the man who defined lucha libre for millions, the man who overcame giants, injuries, and countless doubters, might be forced into retirement not because he's ready to go, but because his heart has given out. And here's where it gets even more heartbreaking, because the next thing Triple H said left everyone speechless.